Why can't you scream in bigots' faces? Why do I need to be respectful to somebody who disagrees with a fundamental, unchangeable part of who I am as a human being because of a fairy tale book that they believe in that somehow should dictate the way that I need to live my life? I'm not going to sit here and be respectful to somebody who is looking for a logical solution to their bigotry. A human being can only be pushed so hard into a corner before they punch a Nazi in the face. You know what I mean? It's almost trying to separate yourself from the communities that you come from in order to be seen as respectable by people who, if you got to know, you probably wouldn't give a shit about their opinion. Hello, you stunning woman on the go. Welcome back to my channel. My name is David and you are watching a very special edition of Dismantling Hate, the series where we combat hateful rhetoric with unapologetic resistance and just enough comedy to keep us from losing our minds. And today I would like to discuss respectability politics. This is a little bit of a deviation from the content that I normally publish for my Dismantling Hate series because I don't come to you with a video that I'd like to react to. In fact, I come to you with a lot more questions than I do answers. And this is a research topic, a research area that I have increasingly become very interested in. I really want to talk about this. I want to have a conversation about this. So if I say anything that you are interested in, or if I ask any questions that you would like to answer, please engage with me in the comments on this video. I want to get a little bit of an understanding about how we as a collective understand respectability politics, because it's something that I've felt the lingering legacy of for a really long time, and I haven't been able to define it. And since I've seen it and heard it defined, I can't get it out of my mind. So that's what's on the agenda today. We're going to take a look at what respectability politics is. I'm going to tell a few stories from my life that have to do with respectability politics, and I'm going to tell you why I hate it and think it's garbage and think that it's the biggest blight on the world as we know it today. Nah, just kidding. That's religion. Let's get into it, bestie. Dismantling Hate starts now. So we're going to start by defining it. What is respectability politics? Respectability politics, or the politics of respectability, is a political strategy wherein members of a marginalized community will consciously abandon or punish controversial aspects of their cultural, political identity as a method of assimilating, achieving social mobility, and gaining the respect of the majority. What I would like to do today is connect this idea of respectability politics to queerness and gender diversity, because that is where my experience lies. Don't be fooled by the masculine attire. Putting the non and non-binary, no, that doesn't make sense. When I was in my early 20s, I had a supervisor that was just casually talking to me one day, and they said, David, I went to the Pride Parade in the park. As somebody who was young and a little bit nervous, especially around queer issues in a professional workplace, I was intrigued and a little bit worried as to why he was bringing this up to me, but a part of me was excited as well because it did show that there was a little bit of support there. And he went on to explain how he was very turned off by all of the swearing that took place at that event. It's not just by people who were attending, because, you know, attendees swear, especially if there's alcohol, and there usually is at Pride. But he was talking specifically about how the performers and the people who had the mics on stage were swearing a lot. And he continued, and he explained to me how he thought that it was counterproductive to the cause of queer people to be presenting themselves in such a way as to not bring people in, rather than to isolate them with vulgar language. And thus my interest in respectability politics began. And this really sat with me for quite a long time, because I thought, you know what, there is an element of truth to this, because this whole idea of respectability politics is that you are going to behave in such a way as to not alienate yourself from people who you are not necessarily trying to gain understanding from, but by people to not see you through the lens of this sociocultural label or umbrella, let's say. So all of my personal life examples when it comes to respectability politics come through the lens of teaching, because that's what I've done, that's what I do, and that's what I know. And this idea of respectability is not something that is inherently bad all the time. If I went to a job interview, and I recently have, I dressed similar to how I am right now. I'm dressed in a respectable, whatever that may mean, but I'm also dressed in clothing that is cohesive with my assigned gender, which is another part of this conversation as well. So this idea of conducting yourself in a way to be respectable, or rather be perceived as respectable by other people, isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes there is room for respectability politics, and sometimes that is important. And I get that, and I understand that. And there are certain things that need to be saved for certain spaces. Saying at a drag show at Pride is not a space for respectability politics. And it really drove me down the rabbit hole of understanding why this idea of somebody's perception of you behaving in such a way that they may deem respectable is really an indication of this overarching oppression that we feel as somebody who doesn't fit the ideals of a straight white cis man. And I come to this from a place of incredible privilege, because when I go walking down the street, most often I look like a straight white cis man. I do. In this moment, you looking at me right now, if there was no audio component to this, perhaps you would look at me and think that's a straight cis white man. If you've watched any of my other videos, you probably can't see me like that. But if this is your first one, you might be inclined to think that. Because honestly, at the end of the day, this idea of respectability politics is an attempt to control other people. And this behavior control is something that we see all over the internet, and something that we deal with on this series quite a bit. As I'm sitting here, I just keep thinking in my head of like, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate respectability politics. It does nothing but reinforce the oppressor as the most powerful piece on the playing board or whatever. I'm getting a little bit lost in the sauce here. So what are the main problems with respectability politics? Number one, that you almost have to earn, there's like a price for admission in order to be seen as respectable. Like this idea of swearing at the Pride Festival. Why can't you? Why can't you? Why can't you scream in bigots' faces? Why do I need to be respectable to people who don't respect me? Why do I need to be respectful to people who scream slurs at me on the street? Why do I need to be respectful to somebody who disagrees with a fundamental, unchangeable part of who I am as a human being because of a fairy tale book that they believe in that somehow should dictate the way that I need to live my life in the Lord's year of 2025? That's embarrassing. But a really big part of this is that a lot of the times we need to be respectful. Or I suppose we don't need to, but there are consequences to the ways that we engage with people if they are not respectful. We do have free speech, but we do not have freedom from consequence, which is something that I think a lot of people conflate. Another example that I'd like to share with you here in regards to respectability politics is I had a student for one course one year. I was not their homeroom teacher. I taught them one course, and this course was drama. And in the scenes that I don't fully remember the context of how that all started, but there was a scene. The students had come up with a character either with a diverse gender expression or they were gay or queer or something of that nature. When I saw that going on, I didn't really question it. I didn't think about it. Art reflects life, and queer people are a part of life, so go off. I don't really care about the identities of the fake characters that you create in this 30-minute block of time. I care about the thematic elements, and I care about the dramatization and the theatrics, and what I'm supposed to care about is the teacher. I just remember how upset this parent was that that was allowed to go on in my class. And gay people shouldn't be in school. That stuff shouldn't be taught in schools, as if I sat down and taught anything. But a really complicating part of this equation was that parent not only was the parent of a child of a student that I taught in that class, but that parent was also a school employee. So there were a few layers to this. So I had to sit in a meeting with some administrators and this parent and defend myself. And it didn't feel like I was defending myself as a teacher. It felt like I was defending myself as a human being with a natural human expression in that moment. And that was really hard to take. And I felt the weight of that for a very long time. Because why do I need to be respectful to people like that? And I don't have the answers. I struggle with that as well, because if you sit there and you scream in a bigot's face and say you're wrong and hateful and a bigot and I hope you stub your toe and you lose the nail on that toe. Would it be cathartic to say that? Yes. Would it be productive to a conversation? I don't know. I don't think so. But me sitting there being the demure little woman that I was at that time going, well, there is a difference between sex and gender, and this is what is outlined in the program of studies, and this is how it fits in, and it's a human rights issue and not an issue of your religion. You see the dichotomy, right? And what are we actually participating in? It's almost as if, and I'm going to use bigots as a big sweeping generalization, capital B, but it's almost like these bigots are searching for logical solutions to illogical problems. And I think that's where I keep getting caught up, is that I'm not going to sit here and be respectful to somebody who is looking for a logical solution to their bigotry. I think that's it right there. This is a really interesting topic to me, and it's something that I'm considering making a little bit of a deeper dive here. This was just a little, appetizer of the topic to see what other people think about this and how other people are struggling with this, because I know I'm not the only person who struggles with this as a gender diverse queer person out here in the world of being a professional, because it is really hard to navigate as we find these problems, because you probably shouldn't scream in people's face, but it does get old time and time again to have to re-explain yourself to folks who inevitably are never going to get it. Right? Because I do want to move forward. I do want to be a part of the conversation that pushes queer rights farther into the future. I do want to be part of breaking down these stereotypes. I do want to be a part of the dismantling of all the hate that exists out here in the world, right? I want to be a part of that. I value that in my life. It so closely aligns with my morals and what I stand for. But also, a human being can only be pushed so hard into a corner before they punch a in the face. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm kind of losing it just a little bit here. But another problem with respectability politics is that it's almost building this false dichotomy of here are the respectful ones and here are the disrespectful ones or the irrespectful ones, right? So in the queer community, it's you have these hardworking people who have full-time jobs and are professionals and they're respectable because they don't shove transgender down our faces. Oh, but the blue-haired baristas who only work part-time at Starbucks, we don't need to respect them. That's not okay. What? I think that's my biggest problem here. It's almost trying to separate yourself from the communities that you come from in order to be seen as respectable by people who, if you got to know, you probably wouldn't give a shit about their opinion. Ooh, wow, look at me proselytizing up here. Is that what that means? I've watched a lot of Bible nonsense in this series. My neighbors have been gone for months and I think they just returned. Oh, that's cute. I think they're snowbirds. She's like hand rolling something on the kitchen island. We just made eye contact. Okay, anyway, I think that's all I have to say on this one, dolls. Thanks for joining me. If you're watching on the Dismantling Hate channel and you want to see some other things that I do out here online, you can subscribe to my David Day channel. If you're watching on my David Day channel and you just want Dismantling Hate, you can go sub to that channel. I have a podcast called D-Talk with David Day. I have a travel channel called DSM Vlogs, where I travel North America in search of the world's largest things. I am a woman on the go and a woman on the game. So if you want to join me, you can subscribe to those channels. You can do all those things. But the most important one for this one, dolls, please write in the comments. Respectability politics. How do we feel? Do you need to be respectful all the time? It's funny. Before I said punch a Nazi in the face, but the reason that I said that is because, on Instagram when you're posting a story and you click on the music because you want to add music to your story, the first recommended option for me on Instagram for weeks and weeks and weeks is it's okay to punch Nazis. I think the algorithm just knows me a little too well at this point because I'm getting closer and closer to punching Nazis in the face. No, because I also think you lose it. If you punch a Nazi in the face, you're resorting to violence. Is violence ever the answer? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Oh God, how am I gonna do this? I need a nice strong ending. Well, I suppose we could just cut to black.